Hello YouTube. Welcome to Zen and the Art of Software Development. I've been writing software since the 80s, both as a hobby and professionally. These days I'm called an architect, which mostly means I talk about software more than I write it. But I still love coding and I've blogged about it for years. This channel is an extension of that passion. In my blog, I started with exploring the concept of a microservice and what it means to use them. Doing microservices, as it's often called, is tightly linked to what we nowadays often refer to as the way of working for developers and development teams. And that means the subject of agile and lean software development. I guess the high point was when I got accepted at a conference and could present to a live audience on this subject. The recording of this talk is linked below. But before I got to that, I was already doing a lot of development. And here is where the story gets really varied because I'm a so-called polyglot developer. That means that I use a lot of different programming languages, and that again, in turn, is caused by how I got into the field. In high school, I was interested in technology. I would sometimes hang out in stores that sold electrical components and kits. One of those stores had a microcomputer on the counter and allowed customers to try it out. This, of course, meant there were lots of boys my age gathering around it, and some wrote small pieces of BASIC on it. One of those boys gave me a sheet of paper with a handwritten program listing for a simple game. I believe it was a kind of snake. This is essentially what got me hooked. Another shop had a bunch of different computers, and one of them was a TRS-80 Model 1 clone called an EAKA Videogenie. The shopkeeper allowed me to come by and play with it, so I spent a lot of days after school at the keyboard. He took an interest in my fumbling attempts at programming and gave me my first lessons in assembly. Apart from the TRS-80 clone, I also got to try out an Apple II, and here I met the first version of an amazing program called the Sublogic Flight Simulator. It required a lot of imagination to see those lines as mountains and rivers, but it was an amazing experience. Then the school bought a real Model 1 with floppy drives and a printer, so they could use a program recommended to them for scheduling lessons. Most of the year, it just stood there gathering dust, until they let me at it. Together with a few friends, we dived into the manuals and started writing our first programs. The mathematics teachers were happy to see us explore this new world, although we mightily disappointed them by not being interested in solving equations with it. Instead, we wrote games and word processors. By the time I graduated from high school, I had written several programs for the school administration. Not big ones, but definitely useful. My father bought our first computer, a TRS-80 Model 3, and immediately started writing software himself as well. At that time, he had a private pilot license and used the computer to first compute courses and later simulate flying aircraft, not in graphics, but in numbers. With all this inspiration, when the time came to decide what to do after graduation, I had no doubts at all and enrolled in the computer science department of Twente University, which had been started the year before. So I quickly added Pascal, Algo 68, C, C++, and many other programming languages to my repertoire, and then discovered the field of programming language design and implementation as a discipline. I ended up started writing my own languages and compilers for them. After I finished my studies, I was invited by a professor at the university in the city where I went to high school. He asked me to combine the subjects of software reusability and compilers, so over the next 4 years I wrote a PhD thesis on supporting software reusability using polymorphic or generic types. If you're interested, I could tell a bit more about it, but for now let me spare you the details and conclude that, unfortunately, economy and psychology have a lot more influence on how often a piece of code is reused than something a computer scientist can do. While this was going on, the internet happened, and with a group of friends, we helped bring affordable dial-up internet to the north and east of the Netherlands. I was running Minix on an Atari ST at that time, as Linus was only just starting his OS. This was all good fun for a PhD student, but soon after I found a real job. I guess I was a bit disappointed, but my hobby work for the ISP made more impact on my new employer than that PhD. But hey, I got to work at several nice projects, including ones at KLM and Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, and later on even for the logistical systems supporting the F-35. My father, by that time on a modern PC, flew simulated aircraft, while I drove around between the real ones. Over the years, I learned a lot of different projects with different clients, and a major development was this new language called Java. With Java, we tried and failed to build desktop applications, but had better success with several large internal and internet-facing systems. Larger systems require different approaches, and here I learned about software architecture, which concerns itself with making several applications work together. Also, IT started to seriously apply itself to itself. We learned how to automate compiling and building applications, performing various tests, and finally deploying them on the server that would run them, all at the push of a single button. Now, you might think that I should feel lucky to have a job where I get paid to do what I would have done as a hobby anyway. This, however, is not always as much fun as it sounds. As a hobbyist developer, you tend to focus on quickly getting the program to do what it needs to do. You find code on the web to fill the gaps in your knowledge, or just to save you the time to write it yourself. At the same time, you also try to share your own products, hoping for a friendly response from someone who uses it to good effect. But as a professional developer, things don't work that way. Writing quality software takes time and skill. The adage is, write code as if the guy who needs to maintain it is a homicidal maniac who knows where you live. This is not just because your boss wants that good quality code, but also because the other guy who needs to maintain it may turn out to be you yourself. And let's not forget the users that depend on everything working correctly, directly or indirectly pay your salary. So, enterprise software, as it is often called, takes way more time to produce than a hobby project can get away with. I found out that once you learn to do this, your hobby projects slow down as well. You want to write clean and reusable software always. As a developer, my approach to flight simulation, apart from the sheer fun of flying canyon runs and trips on faraway continents, has always been to write programs to talk to that simulator. Add in modern small single-port computers and controllers, cheap displays and lots of buttons, and you see why I'm both active on Windows with Microsoft Flight Simulator, as well as with Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, and ESP32s. What's the fun in buying a home cockpit if you can build one yourself? I'll give you that recent cheap hardware from China puts the finances in favor of buying, but hey, I'm a developer by heart. So, where are we now going with this channel? I'll be making videos about what I love to do, writing clean and good code. I'll also be talking about the enterprise stuff, but it will be fun nevertheless. All the code I make and talk about will be publicly available on GitHub. The code will have a copyright on it with an open source license, which will basically mean you can have all the sources, play with it, and even use it in a commercial project if you're so inclined. All I ask of you is that you leave the license in, help me improve where needed, and help others with our combined efforts. I won't claim anything not written by me, nor can anyone else. This is how the internet grew big, as it is now. I know. I was there. I can't make any promises about the publishing schedule, simply because I have a daytime job. And it's not this channel. But I have some stuff that I'm working on, so as I learn and grow on YouTube, you shouldn't have to wait long. I have some stuff ready to start a course on programming with SimConnect, about writing Windows applications that talk to Microsoft Flight Simulator. I also have done a lot of work on a C# library for this, as SimConnect itself is oriented towards C and C++. And naturally, I still have a huge stack of components for that cockpit, and that will need a lot of software too. Finally, I'm using AI a lot. One of the things I do with it is called rubber ducking. Are you all ready? If not, it's an amazing way to improve your software development skills and to kickstart new projects. Okay, so there's going to come more videos. Basically, they're about what I like to do and what I like to talk about, and I hope I can help other people with it. So, as Dave from Dave's Garage says, I'm in it mostly for the subs and likes, so if you feel like it, please leave one of those. You're also free to leave comments, but I can't promise replies on all of them in short time. Thank you for your time, and see you in the next one.